All right, let's jump right in here. Tonight, we're going to try and peel back the layers of one of history's most infamous mysteries. We're talking about, of course, Jack the Ripper.
What's the Ripper?
Yeah, you gave me quite the stack of source material to go through here. Firsthand accounts, police reports, early psychological profiles, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be really fascinating to kind of dig into this and see if we can, I don't know if we can solve it.
Well, nobody has yet.
Right, exactly.
But, I think what really stands out to me about the sources you've chosen is the emphasis on social conditions in Whitechapel at the time. It wasn't just a setting. It was really a breeding ground for this sort of phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, for folks who maybe haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this case, I mean, first of all, paint a picture of Whitechapel for us. What was life like there in 1888?
It was a tough place. I mean, you can imagine a district, just teeming with people, struggling under the weight of industrialization. Poverty was everywhere. Housing was incredibly overcrowded. I mean, the streets were, often shrouded in this perpetual fog, almost like a visual representation of the despair that kind of permeated the whole area.
Wow. So you've got this really kind of almost oppressive atmosphere. And that's where Jack's reign of terror begins, right?
Exactly.
You gave me a copy of the original police report detailing the discovery of that first victim, Polly Nichols.
Right.
I mean, that must have just sent absolute shockwaves through that community.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a diary entry from a Whitechapel resident in the source material, and it really captures the fear that gripped everybody after Polly's murder. I mean, it's amazing. The writer talks about how everyday locations, like, the market, the pub, all of a sudden they felt incredibly dangerous. Like, the killer could be lurking around any corner.
Right. Yeah. Nobody felt safe, I imagine.
No, not at all.
So we've got all this fear, this uncertainty, these really grisly murders. There was a lot of speculation, obviously, about the killer's mindset. You gave me some early psychological profiles. What did those have to say about Jack?
Well, there's one profile in particular, written by Dr. Thomas Bond for Scotland Yard, and he actually uses the phrase ferocious cunning to describe the killer.
Ferocious cunning.
Yeah, and he speculates that Jack derived pleasure from the act of killing itself, and from the control he exerted over his victims.
That's terrifying.
It is, yeah.
And it makes the level of violence used even more disturbing.
Exactly.
We always hear this term, surgical precision.
Right.
But one of the sources you provided, a coroner's report, actually went into a lot of detail about the specific cuts made on the victim.
Right, yeah.
I mean, these weren't just random acts of violence. There was something else going on there.
There was a method to the madness.
Yeah.
It was very disturbing.
The report you gave me actually uses the words clean and deep to describe these incisions, suggesting a level of anatomical knowledge that, I mean, it wasn't all that common.
Not at all.
I mean, that fueled the theory, right? That Jack might have had medical training.
Possibly even a surgeon.
Yeah, maybe a surgeon. That's what makes this case so fascinating and frustrating at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, with all these theories, we still don't have a definitive answer. Right?
No, we don't.
With the question of who Jack the Ripper was.
And it's not for lack of trying?
No, absolutely not. He remains an enigma.
He does.
Just a ghost from the past that continues to
haunt us.
Yeah, haunt us.
This day.
Right.
Yeah.
And amplified, even more by the fact that he was never caught.
Right.
Scotland Yard.
They investigated.
They went down so many rabbit holes.
Numerous suspects, but
never got their man.
They could never quite catch him.
He just vanished, basically.
It's as if he just vanished into the fog.
Leaving behind only
whispers
and speculation.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about this idea of London itself, almost being like a breeding ground for this whole Ripper legend.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the city, the fog, those streets, those shadowy corners.
Right.
I mean, it plays a huge part, don't you think?
Absolutely. The city itself really becomes like a character in this whole drama.
Yeah.
You shared a collection of newspaper articles from 1888.
Right.
And reading through those, it's clear that these murders weren't just local news.
Right.
They became like a national obsession.
It's interesting, too, because you can see how those articles kind of shift over time, from just like the straight facts reporting to these increasingly sensationalized accounts.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost as if the media was feeding this growing fear and fascination with this case.
And that fear wasn't entirely unfounded.
No, of course not.
I mean, the police couldn't catch Jack. The crimes were incredibly brutal.
Yeah.
And it created this sense of paranoia
Right.
that just permeated every aspect of life in Whitechapel. People were terrified to walk the streets at night.
Yeah, I mean, one of the articles you gave me, it actually has this illustration of Jack the Ripper.
Oh, wow.
And he's this looming, shadowy figure.
Yeah.
Like a bogeyman, basically.
Right, exactly.
Clear he'd become more than just a criminal at this
Oh, yeah.
in the public imagination. He was a symbol
He's a symbol of
the darkness
right.
that they felt was lurking underneath the surface of society.
And you can see how these anxieties about social class and morality really played into the public's perception of Jack.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the theories that were circulating at the time, and you can see them reflected in these newspaper accounts, they were trying to explain his motives by linking them to broader social anxieties.
Yeah, that one theory that really stood out to me was the idea that Jack was actually a member of the upper class, maybe even royalty.
Right, that was a popular one.
Using the murders as a way to exert power over the lower classes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it reflects those anxieties about the social inequalities of the time.
Right.
You gave me that historical analysis that delves into this, and it explains how that stark contrast between the wealthy elite and the impoverished working class really fueled these kinds of suspicions.
It seems like everyone had a theory
Oh, yeah.
about who Jack was
Yeah.
and why he was doing this. But, I mean, none of them panned out.
Not conclusively. And that's part of what keeps us so fascinated with this case, even today.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're drawn to the mystery, right? To the idea that could maybe solve this puzzle that's baffled the best minds for over a century.
That's it.
And that lack of a definitive answer.
Right.
I mean, it lets us kind of project our own interpretations onto the story.
Right.
Fill in the gaps.
Right.
With our own fears, our own fascination.
It's like a blank canvas
Right.
for our imagination. Yeah.
And that's why it continues to inspire so many books and movies.
Oh, absolutely.
TV shows.
I mean, we can't resist the allure of the unknown,
Right.
that desire to peer into the darkness and try to make sense of it.
Yeah, we're all drawn to that. It's funny, as we're talking about all this, I can't help but think that this story, even though it's over 100 years old at this point, it still feels so relevant.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're still fascinated by true crime, by these killers, the psychology behind it, this idea of evil lurking in the shadows.
Well, it taps into those primal fears, that we all have, the fear of the unknown, the fear of violence, and in a world where we're just constantly bombarded with information about real life horrors.
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper serves as this kind of reminder that some mysteries, they may never be solved.
Yeah, there's no neat and tidy ending to every story.
Right.
One of the things you gave me has a really interesting study. It looked at the cultural impact of Jack the Ripper case. And it argued that these murders didn't just terrify London.
Yeah.
But that they actually helped to shape the way we think about crime and criminal profiling even today.
Yeah, and that's a really key insight. That study highlights how the River case, with its emphasis on forensic evidence, psychological analysis, it helped to pave the way for a lot of the modern criminal investigation techniques we use. It really forced law enforcement to evolve.
Yeah. So it's almost like Jack the Ripper unintentionally pushed us towards a more scientific
and psychological
understanding of crime.
In a way, yeah. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back on everything we've discussed tonight,
Right.
It seems like that enduring mystery of Jack the Ripper's identity is really what continues to draw us in. It's that unanswered question, who was he?
Right.
That keeps us searching for those clues, for answers.
It's the ultimate cold case.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. And the fact that we may never know the definitive answer, well, it adds to the mystique.
So
it allows us to continue to speculate, to debate, to really grapple with that darkness.
So as we wrap up here, I'm curious, listener, what stands out to you the most? I mean, is it the brutality of these crimes? Is it the social context of Victorian London? Is it just the enduring mystery of Jack the Ripper's identity?
Whatever it is that resonates with you, I think it's important to remember that Jack the Ripper's story is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. Yeah. It continues to shape our present, to influence our thoughts and to really challenge our understanding of the world.
And sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved, the ones that force us to confront the limits of our knowledge,
Hmm.
and to really grapple with the darkness that lies just beneath the surface
Yeah.
of our everyday lives.